Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Taicho, and that's X. And today we're going to be building a one-piece power scaling dashboard. Given the recent events in chapter 1117, I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to contribute to the discourse and toxicity that exists around power scaling in the One Piece community. So we're just going to jump right into it and create our One Piece power scaling dashboard. Check it out. So how exactly are we going to create a One Piece power scaling dashboard? Well, we'll break it up into a few different parts. So the first part, we're going to go over the data and the data synthesizing that's necessary to stage the dashboard. And then after we review the data and how we transform it to meet our needs, we'll jump into Tableau and create our dashboard. So first, let's go over the initial data. Naturally, power scaling is a subjective thing. So what I've gone and do, as you can see on the screen, is I've created an Excel spreadsheet with 3 columns. These 3 columns are going to be the basis for the dashboard. We have the link, which is the character link, the metric, and the value. So for this power scaling, I've actually taken inspiration from a very old scorecard that used to be released with Bleach characters. And so what I've done is I've decided on what I think are the 6 most important criteria for power scaling One Piece characters. As you can see in the metric column, we have those 6 options. We have defense, hockey, intelligence, mobility, offense, and X factor. Now the reason I chose these 6 variables is because I think they're comprehensive enough that we can group pretty much most of the combatants' abilities into them. And the 2 main ones that I think broaden the scope of this are hockey and X factor. We'll jump into more exactly how I kind of determine hockey, but obviously we know there's multiple forms of hockey, but without getting it too complicated and having things too busy, I think hockey as a general is a good enough gauge to determine the individual's combat ability in that regard. And then for X factor, if you've been reading One Piece long enough, you know that abilities come in all different shapes and sizes, right? So we can be talking about the different types of devil fruits, or the abilities of characters, say the Germa crew, or characters that just have other miscellaneous abilities. We're gonna just kind of all group that into X factor, because if we try to nitpick at every little different thing, it'll be way too difficult. So basically using the X factor as a one capture all in terms of the breadth of various abilities that we encounter in One Piece. Now for the scaling, we're going to keep it pretty simple. Basically, we're going to use a scale of 0 to 100, and how adept you are at the particular metric will determine your scale. So that's the first part of the main data. Now I haven't gone and included everyone. I've started with the Straw Hats because I think, why not start with the Straw Hats? And then if you've been following along in my kind of bounty analysis videos, which you can check out here, I have a list of all the characters with the bounties. So after we do the Straw Hats, we'll start a new series where we do power scaling for the characters in that list first, and then branch out from there. So moving on, having those power scaling metrics in the spreadsheet is a good start, but for the dashboard, we want it to be a little bit more comprehensive than the fields that we have in that spreadsheet. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know we've done a lot of work to kind of web scrape and synthesize different One Piece data elements. And so what we want to do is move this spreadsheet into our SQL Server database. Here's the quick script. I'm not going to go over it. If you're interested in how I move data from different sources, you can check out this video where I go into detail on exporting data into SQL Server. Okay, so now essentially we can see here that we have a database object called One Piece Character Power Scale. If we select the top 1,000 rows from there, we see the elements that we had in the spreadsheet here. So this is a good start for us. What we want to do after this is basically we want to append some ancillary information to just kind of increase the comprehensiveness of the dashboard that we develop. So some of the attributes that we might want to increase, if you check out over on the left, is we have the character's age. That'd be good. We have information in the character bio that we'd like to bring in. We also have the character's height, and then we have the character's appearance. So those are probably going to be the main tables that we're working with. What we're going to want to do is actually synthesize them and have 3 different data sources that will eventually import into SQL Server. So the first one is going to be the actual power scaling table that'll have the character, their relevant metrics, and some of the ancillary information that we just discussed from those tables. The second one is we're going to want to have a general kind of ranking of the character as they relate to different metrics, right? So for example, what rank is Luffy when it comes to defense, or what rank is Zoro when it comes to offense? Being able to visualize that along with their corresponding information is a good value add. And then lastly, what we want to do is just kind of get an idea of the character and the context that they may have in the story, right? Not all characters are made equally, not all characters are shown as frequently, and characters show up at different points in the story. So it's probably a good idea just to have some character context around that. And we're going to utilize the character appearance data table that we have to have a separate data source that we input to get some trends off of that. So just to recap, we're going to bring in 3 data sources. First, the power scaling metrics. Second, the power scaling ranking. And then third, the character appearance data. So now that we know our 3 data sources, let's actually start to synthesize them. So X, if you could create a SQL query that synthesizes the bounty information, the character bio information, and the various character attributes that we talked about, that'd be great. Awesome. So here's that script. Now I've gone over kind of SQL in some of my other videos, which you can check out here, but let's break it down pretty briefly. Alright, so let's start with this very first part of our query. This is called a common table expression, also known as inline queries. But basically what this allows me to do is create a lot of different mini tables that I'll eventually bring together at the bottom. So the first thing is we're working with our bounty data. We know that characters have multiple bounties throughout the story, so we really only want to bring in the most recent bounty for this character at this point in time. So what we do here is first we want to make sure we're utilizing bounty as the most appropriate data type. So that means making sure it's an integer or potentially a decimal, but I don't think we have too many decimal bounties. And then what we want to do is we want to identify, okay, well, which is the highest bounty that a character has. And so we use a case statement, right? And basically what I do is I take the case statement and I say when the bounty equals the max bounty for a particular link, then label it as yes. Otherwise, label it as no. Let's take a look and see what that actually looks like. Right. Okay, so you can see a lot of yeses. You know, some characters only have, the majority of characters really only have 1 bounty. Other characters have 2. Bartolomeo going from 150,000 to 200,000 berries. And let's see if we can say, we see Boa Hancock. She started off at 80 million berries. Now she's all the way up to 1.65 billion berries, right? And you can see each of the maxes is tagged, and we can see the chapter that actually occurred. Some of the characters have zeros because their bounties was revealed in SBSs, so they just have a 0, but other characters we can actually see when that bounty increase occurred. So that's our first kind of mini table that we have here. And then from there, we just create another one of those, right? So now that I've created this CTE called bounty, I select from that bounty table and just put the filter on. So basically anything with a no here gets filtered out. The next step is I kind of want to just do some rankings. It's always nice context to see where they fall in the food chain or the bounty hierarchy. And so after we've gotten the distinct max bounty for each character link, we just add this rank clause over it. And basically what it does is it assigns a rank to the bounty in descending order. So the highest bounty will be ranked number 1, second highest would be ranked number 2, third highest would be ranked number 3. So we're looking at Roger number 1, Whitebeard number 2, and Kaido number 3. Next thing is, let's bring in some height information. If you checked out my One Piece Bounty Exploratory Data Analysis video, which you can check out here, you know that One Piece characters come in all different shapes and sizes, which is one of the marvels of the One Piece story in general. So we want to go and we want to grab that height information. I convert stuff to feet because that's how I understand it. If you understand metrics system, great for you. Unfortunately, I was born in America, so we don't know metric system. That being said, characters also have multiple heights, and we kind of follow a similar syntax with the height information as we did with the bounty. So basically, we want to just get the max height for that character and select that only. Now, the final piece of this is to kind of put it all together and bringing all the other final information that we want, right? So what we want is the character link, the bounty, we want the metric, so that's going to be their power scaling metric, we want the power scaling value, we want the name of the character, and then we also want to bring in some photo information. So I'll touch on this when I get to it in the dashboard, but this is a neat little thing that adds a nice visual aspect to it. But we want to bring in the photo information, we want to bring in the bounty rank, we want to bring in where the character's from, if they have any nickname, what that character's status is, you know, their birthday, and then the height information. So that gives us a good biography of the character. So what we do is we're going to take that from our One Piece power scaling database object that we just created with the Python script to import. And then we're going to do a bunch of different left joins. So first we left join the character links, then we left join the photo links, everything being linked on this link, which is their URL to the wiki page. And then we bring in the bounty rank on the link, we bring in the character bio joining on the link, and then we bring in the height join on the link. And of course we want to make sure that we only bring in the max height. So that's our query. It may look like a lot, but a lot of it is just kind of refining the data so that we only bring in the data points that we want. You know, this is part of your typical data cleaning process, just so that the information you're working with is nice and concise. Now we could run that, but what I usually do is, so I don't have to remember the whole query or open up the whole query, is we create what's called these views. And basically what a view is just a stored query. So it takes this long-ish query that we have, right, which is about a little less than 50 total rows, and it saves it as this One Piece power scale. So I would run these 3 lines up here, and what that would do is, if I do a simple select star from onepiece.dbo. One Piece power scale, right? Because we could see that the view is saved over here. Here's all the information that we're going to be working with. So we have the character link, we have the character bounty, the metric, the value of that metric, the character name, a link to their photo, their bounty rank, where they're from, what their nickname is. All that great information that we kind of work to synthesize is now in this one table, which is in this one view, which makes it a lot more digestible when we want to go and extract this information. Alright, so let's take a pause there and we'll start working on the next part. Okay, so we've gone over the most comprehensive part in terms of our data synthesizing. The next data source that we want to get is the ranking, right? This is going to be a lot simpler. So we know that our initial spreadsheet had 3 columns, and all we really need to do is create a rank. We could do that in the spreadsheet using various functions, but let's just do it in SQL. So the same way that we rank the bounty is the same way that we're going to rank the metric. Basically, we're going to select the name of the character, the metric, the value, and then we put this rank clause over, which is a window function, basically just ranks based off of the criteria that we give it, and that criteria is going to be metric, and we want to order it by the value. So think about who's the top ranked defense, who's the top ranked offense. That's what this will tell us, and you can see the output there below. So that's a pretty simple query. If you're interested in getting into SQL, I would recommend doing simple stuff like this to kind of practice your skills. Now, the final table that we want to get is going to be the character appearances. This is going to give us some good context in terms of the weight of that character and when they were relevant within the story. Speaking of which, if you haven't, I recommend you go check out my One Piece character appearance analysis, as well as my other analysis where I do a kind of timeline of which character appears most frequently in which arc. You can check that video out here. So what does that exactly look like? Well, let's first look at the character appearance data, right? So we see this is also a pretty simple table. It has 3 columns: the chapter, the character, and the type of appearance. We're going to kind of disregard that, but it is a good field to have, whether it's a cover story appearance or if that character appeared in a flashback. The wiki does a good job of detailing that. But yeah, so we could see starting with chapter 1 all the way down to chapter 1117, we can see who appears. That's our starting table. Now what we want to do is kind of refine it, right? So we're only working with the characters that are in the power scaling database, so we don't want to have all the extra characters kind of bringing in noise into our table until we add them into the power scaling. And so how we can refine that is by this simple query here. So for the One Piece bounty character appearances, right, based off of who we've power scaled, that's going to be our driving table. So if the character doesn't appear in that spreadsheet, we don't want to include them. And the way we do that is we select from our One Piece character power scale table, and then we just join off of that. So we know that there's only 10 or 11 characters in it, so the character appearances after we run this, you notice it's only down to 6,000 rows versus the initial 31,000 rows. But essentially what this has done is just refined our data set to only show the character appearances for the characters in those. Nice. And so that's our data synthesizing, right? We've set up our data. I know this isn't the most comprehensive explanation that I've done in the past, but again, you can check out my other playlist, One Piece web scraping, where I go over how I web scrape to Wikipedia in Python, use Python to push that data into a SQL server and all that great stuff. You can check out there. So now let's move on to the fun part, which is the actual dashboard construction. Okay, so the very first part of starting the Tableau dashboard is to ingest the data. If you made it this far, shout out. I recommend you hit the like button and subscribe for more content. But we just did a lot of work to synthesize that all in SQL Server. The first data source that we're going to bring into Tableau is the view that we created, right? So I've already established my connection up here. I'm just going to do a new custom SQL and select star from the One Piece Power Scale view, right? That brings all the different data that we have. I'm going to turn that to extract, and I'm going to rename that as One Piece Power Scale Photo. Right. Now we're going to bring in 2 more data sources, right? Because we created 3. We had the main one with the measures, then we had the rankings, and then we have the character appearances. So I'm going to do a new data source. I'm going to go connect to SQL Server. Now, the simple query that we used to create the ranks, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use that same query and bring in the rankings, right? So we put that here. Call that scorecard ranks. Extract. And now we have two data sources. Now we're bringing our third and final data source, which is the character appearance. Following the same format. Now the reason I didn't create those as views is just because the initial one is a little bit more comprehensive, whereas these secondary ones, they're kind of short, small queries, so I didn't really need to go and save that. But that's kind of like a user preference. I'll call this one piece of character appearances. Okay, so let's actually start creating our dashboard. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to go through creating each individual visual that goes into the dashboard. Rather, we'll just kind of walk through them and then show how we place it to get it all aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so the first one you can see here, this is going to be the main meat of the dashboard. This is actually the radar chart, the spider chart, that shows how developed a particular metric is for that character. This is going to be the actual inside. We have a very similar visual called the outside, but this will enable us to kind of see what the score for each of the 6 metrics that we created are. The second one, the third one is the photo. It's always nice to have a photo to kind of see the character and their score, and it just adds a nice component to it. If you're interested in how I was able to do this, let me know and I'll make a different video. Then we have the scorecard. So these are going to be that character's rank for the particular metric. Keep in mind right now these metrics that we're seeing, they're only for about 11 characters. As we add more characters and their power scaling, the ranks will probably change and get adjusted. Then we have a couple different strings, right? So this is going to be the character's birthday, the character's nickname, their origin, the character's bounty, character's bounty rank, character's height. So that's going to be their main biography. The next thing we do is we have a line graph of the character's appearances. This basically counts the number of chapters that the character appeared in per year, based off the chapter release date. We have not similar visual, but this visual using the same data as the character appearance line chart. This groups the number of chapters that character appeared in by the arc, right? And then lastly, we have a link. So we know we have about a good amount of visuals. Let's build the dashboard now. So I'm going to go onto a blank page. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the size. So I'm going to make it 1520 by 1610. Alright, so I make it a 1520 by 1060. That just increases the size of our canvas. First thing I usually like to do, I like to just give it a little header. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this text, change the font, Georgia, let's increase that to like 36, center it. We're going to call it a one-piece power scaling dashboard. Okay. Let's increase the size of this. Bring it to the top. And what we could do here is add some aesthetics to it. I like gray color. to make it kind of like a light red. Alright, so that'll be that. The next thing that we want to do is to... First, let's create the character bio, right? Let's think about the character that we're using. So, what we'll do is we'll take out a vertical container, use that here, and we're going to drag the photo, right? And we know we have a filter for Monkey D. Luffy right now. Okay. And I'm just going to say entire view. Alright, so that's our first piece. I'm going to call this container character bio. Voila. Now we can, what I'm going to do is create another vertical container. I'm just going to put all the supplementary bio information that we brought into it. So let's think. First thing, what's he known as? He's known as that. His origin, date of birth, height, and bounty rank. Alright, let's get rid of the headers. And then let's fit the entire view so we can see it. Okay, so this is the character bio, right? So let's call this character bio. It's always good to name the containers so that if you need to click a specific one, you have it nice and organized so you know which one you want. Now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it in this other container, and you can see we kind of have a true character bio starting to take shape. Okay. So, of course we know Luffy's the main character and he appears in almost all the chapters, but just to add some context, let's bring in some of those visuals that we created about the character appearance. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a horizontal. I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to put this in here. And then I'm going to take the arcs. I'll put the arcs over here. Hide the title because we don't really need that. Let's see. Distribute the contents. Nah, don't want to do that. We want to share that, but we don't have enough here. So we just need to make sure that this is big, right? And then I think we can put that over here. Let's extend this. Right? Okay. So now we're starting to get some shape, right? So we know we're working with Monkey D. Luffy. And we can see the arcs that Luffy both appeared in. Some of them will be based off just the length, like we know Wano and Dressrosa, or some of the longer arcs in the story. But yeah, this is, I think, good story context. And then let's bring in that line graph that we had. Chapter years, right? So we'll just put that right below. Get rid of the title. Okay. So we have this. Let's give it a border. Make it a little big. Right. So this is going to be like our first main component for the dashboard. Select everything here. Drag that down. I want to have this smaller, right? We want to see that information. Cool. So this is our first kind of main piece of the dashboard. One more thing that we can add, which will be a little bit valuable, is we're just going to put the link right here. And do entire view. Put the link here for now. the next piece we want to do is let's bring in the actual radar chart with the metrics, right? So we have to do this in a couple pieces. So I'm going to bring in a vertical container first. Alright, I'm going to put that here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that outside of the radar chart in first. Okay. So now we kind of have our framework for that. So we have the outside. What I'm actually going to do now is bring in another horizontal. I just like to keep them all organized. So we drag here, this. And I'm going to click this one. Call this radar outside. Radar outside. This needs to be. Bring that to the front first. What I'd like to do is put it in here. Okay, so that's in here. And now we'll take the character bio, see if we can do the same thing. So we gotta bring this to front. Distribute evenly. Distribute. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. And now we have our kind of two components come together. So the next part, we want to actually see the metrics, right, for Luffy's scorecard, and what we need to do is bring the inside. And so this won't go in the container because it needs to be on top, but basically, okay, let's take this link first, the name, put that here. Oh no, we don't want that. Get rid of that. Kind of increase the size. Get rid of this header and put that right here. Okay. So now we have the score, right? So now we have two components. Let's give this radar one a little aesthetics as well. Give it a little border. And this one probably doesn't need any padding. Just get rid of that. Realign that. And I'm using these grids to make it nice and aligned. Alright, so now we can see, right? Let's review Luffy's scorecard real quick. He's got a 95 X factor. I think that makes sense, given his devil fruit, Nika, you know, Hiro no Mi model Nika. His offense is pretty proficient. His defense is good. You know, he's rubber. Most attacks don't really even hurt him unless you're using hockey or slashing attacks. We know his hockey is great. I'll go into further detail how I came up with the scores when I actually start reviewing them. His intelligence 67, mobility 70. He can't swim, but he can fly, and he's obviously very quick. And then the offense again. So there's our kind of our radar chart. And then I think the last thing that we want to bring in is let's see, the scorecard, right? So And the scorecard really just, I'm going to put that there. I'm going to bring another vertical. Drop that over here. Put some text. And let's just call this character metric rank. Something like that, right? Make it a little bit bigger. 15. Boom. Boom. We put this up top. Drag that over, and essentially that's what you would have, right? So obviously I wouldn't leave it at that, but that's kind of how we would go about and create the dashboard. Clean up the aesthetics. Ultimately, we have this, right? So here's our final dashboard, aesthetics and everything. We have our one-piece scaling dashboard header up here. We have a title for this visual, which is the metric rank. Based out of the characters that we've ranked so far, Luffy has the best defense, the best hockey, third best intelligence. He's the second best mobility, top offense, top X factor, based off of who we've ranked. Here's his photo. Again, the arcs and the number of chapters he's appeared in per arc. Here's how many chapters he's appeared in on a year-to-year basis. I haven't 2003. I don't know. Must have been a hiatus or something. Interesting. Then we got his details, right? Mugiwara no Luffy. He's from East Blue, born on May 5th. He's 5'7", 3 billion berry bounty. That's tied for 10th. There's a couple other 3 billion berries. Here's his scorecard, right? Again here. And now the cool part about it is we want it to be dynamic. So if we can switch around to other characters. We have Jewelry Bonnie, right? If you see her trend, she hasn't been in the story too frequent. Sabaody starting there, and then a bunch of different arcs, kind of cameo appearances almost, and then she really starts to show up in Egghead in 2022. Wow, Egghead's been going on for a while. More in 2023, and then now 2024, of course. Her bounty rank is 57. I gave her a very high X factor. Good intelligence. No hockey. Okay offense. Okay defense. Okay mobility. Everything really based off the X factor, which is her ability of the devil fruit that was spliced into her genes. But yeah, this is the One Piece power scaling dashboard. Let me know what you guys thought. I don't want to go too much into the actual metrics. I'll start doing that when I start adding characters and going over the particular feats and such that help me determine what their metric is. But yeah, until next time, Tai Chihuahua.